Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, episode 10. I was excited for this episode, but of course I'm always excited to watch this anime, but I heard some good things about the upcoming arc. I mean, I know some people are obviously upset that they were once again going to a different arc ahead of time than it was in the manga, but for the people who enjoyed this arc, I heard a lot of good things, and based on part 1 of what we just witnessed, I have to say, I hope this lasts the remainder of the season. I mean, I assume it will just be a 2-parter, but maybe it'll be a 3-parter, I don't know, but the Hell of Mirrors and seeing Mitsuba, who I thought was a goner, apparently is just been chilling in complete isolation, and the ruler of the boundary, it's hard to say what is death and killing in this show, because I thought Mitsuba was a goner, even as a ghost. It didn't look good for him, and seeing this bird just get annihilated by Hanako's brother was... I mean, it is such a contrast to what we usually see with Hanako. Typically, when Yashiro has been in trouble and is called out for help, Hanako has been there, and yeah, there has been violence for saving her, but never like that. Grabbing by a face and literally pummeling to near death, if not death, wiping blood on Mitsuba's face. It just... there's something so twisted but comical about this series, and it's like, I think that moment at the very end is one of the best examples I can give on how this show walks that thin line very well, of being super serious and dark and dramatic, but then also having something be directed in like a motion manga design to be comedic, but like you're only laughing because you're nervous, where from the character's perspective who's inflicting all this pain and suffering, that's just pure fun to him. Like, there's so much we don't know about what we see, and that's what makes this entire journey all the more memorable. Because as we see something, we think we have an understanding of what's happening, and sometimes we get a deeper understanding. Like for Yashiro, this is the first time she ever interacted with Mitsuba, but we as a viewer have already experienced this wild character and what he's going to bring. So of course you have understanding there, but then when you see the Hell of Mirrors and how basically if you have a guilty conscience and you look into a mirror, bad things are gonna happen, and just, even though it's very basic, the idea that our girl was basically terrified of being called fat-ankled, at the same time, anyone growing up, going through school is gonna have some self-confidence issues, even if they shouldn't be self-conscious because they're perfect, or they honestly are perfectly acceptable. There's always going to be some form of insecurity, and if we really could take into consideration the idea of rumors and ghosts and the supernatural, the paranormal, obviously there would be some form of mysterious entity that would take your most simplistic and basic fear, especially if you're just a young kid growing up. You're not going to have the same fears as an adult would that are a lot more like, oh, I'm scared of dying in a car crash or something like that, right? I'm scared of not being able to support my family. A teenager growing up is going to have more fears on the lines of being looked at as fat. So I like how they're really taking advantage of the supernatural setting in the show, because honestly, for me, if you were to ask me, what are like the go-to like stories to tell spooky tales, or something that's either going to be really intriguing or super horrifying that you're going to want to run away from, it's either campfires or mirrors. I just feel like saying a chant in a mirror or just having rumors surrounding mirrors is just a recipe for success, as is a campfire. A campfire, I think, is great for like spooky stories, because a campfire is supposed to be warm and comforting, bringing people together as you tell a story about someone who's going to stab you in the back as you feel at peace. A mirror, you can have so many different ways to either suck someone in, give a world within a world, what we see is reversed into a world, or in the case of this, just hands sucking you in and having to face your deepest and darkest fears. I like how Hanako actually had to separate himself for a little bit because he was actually afraid of going in and basically causing even more chaos than he would be able to solve. But the fact that his brother came in, who probably has way more deepest and darkest secrets involved, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen next week, but that has me incredibly excited. To be honest, I mean, with the name of the episode and how the episode started off, I was expecting something a lot more simple. I mean, yeah, when you have hell in your title name, you would think bad things, but honestly, the idea of just these hands popping up in pictures and how she was just very confused and creeped out, and all really they wanted to do was to have some form of connection, whether that's an arm wrestle, you're playing a game, you're shaking their hand, you're giving them a fist bump. Like, it's such a simple idea, but honestly, if ghosts were real, you would think that there would just be simple, you just need something to help you pass on. Maybe you didn't have enough connections in your life that you feel lonely, and that's why you can't be at peace. And I was like, you know what? Obviously something big will happen, but I wasn't expecting anything too crazy, at least in this episode, and based on the fact that it was called a part 1. I thought maybe this would be kind of like the calm before the storm, and then we just see her sucked right through a mirror, and I'm just thinking, okay, yeah, why am I still kidding myself at this point? Everything's going to be wild and completely batshit insane, balls to the walls, insanity, and that's why we love it, because it definitely never lets you easily predict what's going to happen unless you obviously have experience with the source material. But as an anime original, I just time and time again see these wonders and just mysteries, and I'm both laughing and horrified, but also feeling at peace all wrapped up into one, and the way they blend this formula is just exceptional to me. I mean, I just love the directing inside the mirror world. At first, it was pretty to the book, almost like a library design, where instead of just like a spiral case of just books as far as the eye can see, you basically had mirrors. But I like the design. I thought it was a simplistic beauty, and as we learn about what's happening, the idea of basically saying, like, you know, once you look inside mirrors, you're gonna have to face your demons. I was expecting the absolute worst, and the fact that we see her friend pop up just calling her fat, I was like, is this show ever going to let this girl get over her ankle, basically hatred? Because I kind of feel like it's such a simple idea, but I think it's kind of brilliant, because honestly, like, what are they gonna do? Is there gonna come a day where, like, Haneko's gonna be like, you know what, your ankles are perfect, and she's gonna overcome that insecurity or something like that? But still, it was both hilarious and also a little demonic to see some of the faces from her and just how she was so tortured, and her interactions with Mitsuba were as glorious as I think anyone could possibly hope. We know the perverted troll that he is and how he will say the most vulgar and vile things and then talk so much shit behind your back, and I love how she was just so clueless and confused about the bombshell that she was about to step on. To have Mitsuba just like eventually gain her support, and as she's like saying like, I'm gonna be the senpai, you know, is such a cute boy, he was just a little worried as he's basically mocking her behind her back. It was great to see the back and forth commentary, because honestly, it was even more glorious than the Go situation. It was great to see just the wild shenanigans unfold, as really they are trapped in hell. But I mean, what else are you gonna do but kind of like make the best of it, I suppose. So it was really nice to see that, and then also how he was just kind of buying in and just like going along with the nightmare until the point where he realized, oh shit, people are actually going to start dying. So it was nice to see how he actually did take authority there. But I think it's clear eventually we're going to see Hanako appear in this kind of hell of mirrors, and it'll be interesting to see if they go that direction, or if maybe Brother is going to get them out of it, and then what that conflict will look like. But I think once Hyo realizes that he's still out there and that this seemingly death wasn't the end, it'll be interesting to see what their relationship could look like, because it definitely felt like something that was ripped away too soon, as if they really were forming this bond and then it was just ripped away in such a brutal fashion. So I'm really excited to see where they're going to take that. But most importantly, where that cliffhanger is going to lead us with episode 11, then obviously 12 before we wrap up this season. This episode, though, I will say, had some of the more impressive visual directing sequences, especially in the more horror-esque design ones, where we're just looking at the way the colors are shifting from such a bright and vibrant, in-your-face, beautiful location. A little creepy and isolated, sure, but I mean, nothing about it was a horror show. And then it just completely became one, and I'm like, this is such a cool boundary. I mean, they're definitely not, you know, missing their mark here. They're definitely understanding how to bring to life such a beautiful aesthetic to be both horrifying, romantic, optimistic, and just depressing all wrapped up into one. It's why it's one of my favorite visual productions of this season. I mean, some people like to criticize sometimes the shortcomings with a lack of movement or just, you know, the general anime missteps that it can take. But when I look at such gorgeous visuals, even at a slideshow level, I'm just loving what they're doing and how it's perfectly capturing that atmosphere really, really well. It almost feels like every time I walk into an episode of this series, I kind of expect the same thing, that I'm going to love the growing relationship between our central trio, and all will be right. And even though I have like this glaring voice in the back of my mind saying, hey, there's a lot of dark shit that's gonna happen, I'm like, nah, I'll be alright for another episode. And there's just a way that they sprinkle it in just so blunt and in your face that you're like, holy shit, that is graphic, that's nothing adorable, nothing sweet, pure nightmare fuel. And then immediately I'm like, nah, I'll be alright, trust me. It's like, I don't know if that's just me or if it's just doing such a great job at perfectly capturing a balance between comfy and just horrifying. I absolutely love that, but I mean, when you really take into consideration the brothers' dynamic with Hanako and of course his brother, I mean, on one hand, of course, you got some slyness and some uncertainty, but it is a more positive atmosphere, and then it's the complete opposite with his brother. So I think that idea of just balancing the two, it really works wonders, especially when you take into consideration the difference in the brothers' viewpoints and, you know, how they operate. It's just exceptional how this production is really 80 to 90% of the time, it's bright. It honestly is colorful. There's obviously some darker colors in the color palette. Even though obviously it's not realistic in design, the atmosphere perfectly doesn't feel horrifying, but when they take that one little shift and they just go completely demonic, it just feels like we've never experienced it in the anime. And I think because they're not abusing that darker, like, visual level, I think it is doing wonders, the same way it is for the actual storytelling, because even though how many times now have we seen the brother be just horrible or just completely, what are we even looking at? The fact that they're not just blasting that 10 minutes out of every episode, it really does make it feel like every time we see him pop up, we're both worried, but we kind of want to see what happens, and every time we see what happens, we want to run the hell away. It's a great design both on a visual and written level, and that's why I'm loving this show. As an anime original, I continue to enjoy this show and really, really crave it. It's getting a little heartbreaking, though, to know that it is almost over, but hey, I'd rather go out with a bang than feel like it kind of sizzled along the way. And as an anime original, I'm still loving my time with it. But as always, let me know your opinions and thoughts down in the comment section below, be it for manga readers, anime originals. What did you think of part 1 of The Hell of Mirrors? Do let me know. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.